So what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be checking for a twist in the frame. So first thing what we want to do is we want to go underneath and we want to measure between, we want to find the center of the axle. So what we do is we measure between U-bolt and U-bolt, divide it in half, and then what we're going to do is, if you take a look at the jack, we have a small square block and we're going to set that right in the very center, and what we're going to do is lift up. Now what we're looking for is we're looking for both wheels to come off the ground at the same time, and if they both come up off the ground at the same time, we know that we don't have a bend in the frame. So if they do come off, so what I'll do first is I'll lift it up and you can see them whether or not we have a bent or a twisted frame. So as you can see, the right wheel is coming up off of the floor before the left wheel. So that means that there is a very slight twist. Now one of the things you got to take into account is how much fuel is in the tank. So if we only have a single tank and all the weight's on the left hand side, that will compensate. So we have to take all those into account. So by me standing on the side of the fuel tank, if that was the empty fuel tank and compensating for that, that will adjust for the weight imbalance. So that's a quick, dirty way to tell if you got a twist in the frame. Now, it's maybe hard to see, but the hood's sitting at a bit of an angle. Now with that, it could be just the way the hood is adjusted. The bumper is straight, but there's no guarantee that we don't have a spring that has partially collapsed. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure on the spring itself. What we'll want to do is open the hood, and we want to measure at the spring pin. So the height of the spring pin on each side. So if we come to the very front, and we want to measure what the height is to the center of the spring, and here we have 27.5. And what we want to do is we want to measure the other side. So measuring the other side, we get 28.25. So we're 3/4 of an inch difference. Now what can compensate for that is we might have a spring on this side that's partially sprung, so it's collapsed. So now it's sitting down. Now there's a couple things we can do with this. We can shim this up by 3/4 of an inch, and that will bring it up even to the other side, or we could replace both springs. What else might cause that too is having a slight twist in the frame can cause more pressure on one side of the spring. So first thing, if we found out that we might have a slight twist, And that might be why we have 3/4 of an inch difference. Okay, so now we're going to check the frame to see if we have a side sway. So what I've done is I've hooked up a block at the front here with a string line, and I've also done the same at the back. Okay, then what we're going to do is we're going to measure from the frame to the string line at the back, and we're going to measure a string line at the front. Then we're going to take a tape measure and go down the frame and make sure that the measurement is the same all the way along. So we had 34 inches at the front and the back when we set it up. Then we go along in different spots and we measure. And there we're 34. Here we're 34. So as we check the measurements all the way down, we got 34 inches here to the string line, 34 inches here from the frame to the string line, and same between the duals. So we know that there is no side sway in the frame, so that part of it's good. Next we're going to check to see if we have a diamond in the frame. So now I'm going to check my frame for a diamond. So first thing I want to do is I want to put a steel bar across. So I've got my steel bar across. Now I have to have two known points that I can measure against. And on this truck I'm going to use the rear sleeper mounts. So what I've done is I've set it up so I've measured 13 inches from the rear sleeper mount to the inside of the frame on both sides. And then I've clamped this down in place. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a square and I'm going to set it up against the frame and see if that bar is square to the frame. If it is, then I know I don't have a diamond in the frame. If I set it up and this isn't square, it means that there is a diamond in the frame. So once that's done, then I can check my axle alignment. So what I have is I have a plumb bob on this side that's set 24 inches out from the frame, and I also have one set up on the other side. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a Dremel gauge and I'm going to go from the center of the string to the center of the axle. Then I'm going to check it on the other side, and once that's done, if it's square, then I can measure from the center of front axle, center of the back axle. If it's not, then I have to adjust the front axle to the frame and get that square, and then once that's done, then do the back axle. So here's my Dremel gauge. So again, in the center of the axle there's the pin. So what we do is go center of the axle, and it is set now. Now I can go to the other side and check it, doing the same thing. Now, checking the axle, I found that they're both identical, so we don't have any problems. But if we did have an issue, what we can do is down in here, we can add shims to move this ahead, or add them to the other side to move the other side ahead, and that will adjust our axle. Now what we want to do is we want to go between axles. So we want to check that dimension. So again, we're going to use our Dremel gauge. and measuring from this side to the other side, we find that they're the same. And again, if we do find that we have difference in dimension, we can go down here and we can add washers to this side to bring it ahead, or add washers to the other side to bring the other side ahead. And that will align our axles. Now, another way to check to see if you've got a diamond in the frame, and also will check a side sway. But with this way of doing it, you have to be able to move the vehicle. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to get a plumb bob, and we're going to find specific points. Let's just say 8 of them along the truck. And what we're going to do is we have a piece of tape on the floor. We're going to drop the plumb bob down, and we're going to put a little X mark at the center of the plumb bob. And we're going to do that for all 8 marks. So we want to be consistent with something that's the same on both sides. So here, we're using a front spring pin where the grease nipple is. So we wait till the plumb bob stops swinging, and we mark it. Now we do that for all 8 places that we want to find along the truck. So if we take a look, we can use the upper spring pin. We can use the grease nipple there. We can come back here and we can find again something that's equal on both sides. So we can use the rear sleeper mount, something on the suspension here, and same on the rear. So we could drop it down against the edge of this, because again, it should be consistent because this came from the factory like that. So once we've done that and we've got our 8 marks out, if you remember back from the video, from the PowerPoint, what we do is move the vehicle out now, and we're going to run a string line and go crisscross to each side, and then we're going to measure those distances and see if they are the same. Now remember, when we're doing our crosses, if the distance is the same on the measuring tape, we don't have a diamond in the frame.